All right, everybody, it's Kevin Harvell from STLTechTalk.com, here sitting with Cory House, who is a speaker here at St. Louis Days of .NET. Cory, thanks for coming on.
Hi there, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'd just like to, go ahead and kind of do a quick little rundown of, what it is that made you want to come and speak at the St. Louis Days of .NET conference again. This is not your first time, is it?
This is my second time.
Second time?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm an alum now.
Right, you're an alum, you're a seasoned veteran.
Yes.
So I guess just give us a little bit of your background, and then we'll
Okay.
kind of touch a little bit about some of the sessions that you've spoke. I believe you spoke 2 different sessions.
I did.
Good.
And once you know it, that my phone would start dinging at us.
Well,
right
that's
when
the
we
way
get
it always
rolling.
goes,
So,
you
yeah,
know.
let me say.
We didn't have the
Dismiss.
disclaimer, please silence all ringers and stuff. We're not at the movies.
You shouldn't
so.
have to tell me that.
No.
But yes, duly noted. Yeah.
So yeah, if you could just go ahead and a little bit of your background. And
Okay, sure. So I've been doing dev for almost 15 years now, and I've been in the .NET JavaScript space for the last 5 or so.
Wow.
Shifted over there. So my history is very polyglot. I jumped early on. I thought Flash was going to take over the world and spent a lot of time there, and then moved on to PHP, to Cold Fusion, did classic ASP, and then last many years in .NET. Really enjoying that. I'm finding here lately that I'm writing way more JavaScript than I would have ever thought, and that's been a lot of my focus here.
Now, being in Java, do you just focus on like Windows stuff, or do you talk about Java? Do you do anything for
Java.
Android?
I should have said JavaScript, not
Okay.
Java.
JavaScript. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and with my history, I spent a lot more time on the Unix side before, but in the last many years, I've been almost solely Windows.
Okay.
The reason to be Windows is the conferences are great.
Right.
I mean,
Oh yeah, definitely. This is the first time I know we've been here. And,
Yeah.
It's just been amazing. A lot of good people, and
Oh, absolutely.
yourself, and great community. Very
yeah,
passionate.
well, that was something that I noticed. Like back when I was in PHP, it's really hard to find the conferences and find the coverage there. The community within the .NET space is just second to none. There's so many great people out there and so many good. You can travel all over the country and speak, which is a lot of fun.
Right. I know with .NET, there's a conference in Kansas City, St. Louis, and it's just all over. I know a lot of people are getting ready to fly to Redmond, from.
Flying straight out of here, one after the
it's
other.
like bam, bam, bam.
Like I can't imagine going to another right now. I need a long nap.
So you're in Kansas City, correct?
I am, yes.
Nice. So that's pretty hopping. Little tech hub right now, isn't it?
It is really hot. I don't know if that's that way everywhere, but it's every friend that I talk to is getting a call from another recruiter. Like .NET in particular, it is very clear that there is no problem with employment at all. You could jump to another employer at the drop of a hat if you wanted to, which is a nice place to be. So the people that aren't happy, just get up and move. And thankfully I am.
Right.
I'm really enjoying what I'm doing.
You got the skills, you're in demand.
Oh yeah, no, even if you don't have the skills,
Right.
you're still in demand.
You're in demand because you can learn on the fly.
Yeah, yeah.
Good. So I guess just talk, some of what your sessions were.
Okay. So I did 2 sessions. I did a repeat from last year. At the last minute, they pulled me in to do my clean code talk. So I just, and I was excited to do it because I just launched my Pluralsight course back on the 8th for that.
Okay.
And I rose all the way to number 2, and I was there for only a few days, and now I've settled back in. I'm still up in the 20s, which is, and they have 1,000 courses, so I'm very excited about the response to it. And it's always been one of those topics that I'm very passionate about, and I feel like it doesn't get enough attention. Maybe because it's rather gray, like the lines of what is clean code versus not, and at what point does it become a conversation about architecture instead or about testing instead and these other things. So this core idea of writing with the reader in mind is just really key, because I see so many people writing code that the minute that it works, then I'm done. And really you need to focus on at what point have I completely conveyed my intent.
Right.
And that's not something easy to do. It takes a mindset as you're writing your code to make sure that every conditional that I write, it's not just can somebody read code and see, well, I can understand what it does, but what were they trying to do? Because especially when you're trying to fix a bug, that's the question that you're asking is, did they make a mistake in understanding how the code works, understanding the semantics, or did they make a mistake in the first place just not even understanding the business requirements? So it becomes really difficult.
Right, so you want to make sure that you're fine-tuning it, optimizing it, and then whenever somebody gets in there to kind of look at it, they'll know exactly what your goal and your mission was.
Exactly. That's the hard part, and that's what I keep driving back to in that course, is that the hard part is understanding someone's intent. And especially a year later when that developer's long gone and you're looking at the code, I'm going, was that what you meant to do?
Right.
Is that what the business told you to do?
Right.
Because it can be very unclear.
Right, so as a developer, when you think you're done, you're probably not done.
From my experience, some people are probably far better developers than me and can do it right the first time, but I end up rewriting nearly everything that I do. I write it the first time in the get this out of my head, let's prototype. I'm very much into the rapid prototype style, and I go, okay, this is a good starting point. But then I look at it, I'm going, how can I refactor this to be more elegant, to avoid repeating myself, to be more performant, to better convey what I was trying to do? And then how can I do this in less lines of code? So there's a lot of opportunities for improving quality in those early stages, and it probably means that that first thing that I write is going to get thrown in the trash
Right,
to some
so,
degree.
I mean, it's kind of like proofreading and revising from, like newspapers or writing articles for a website.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love the comparisons to being an author, because the fact is, good authors convey their intent very clearly. They're easy to read. They don't have a lot of noise. I mean, this whole idea of signal noise is something that I really talk about in the course, that classifying what signal is and what noise is, that signal is really the core business logic, and that I have conveyed exactly what I intend to do. But then when we talk about noise, it's things like unnecessary comments that are just repeating what the code does. We need to assume that the reader can read code.
Yeah.
And that sounds silly, but authors assume that you can understand them, and they in rare places add annotations down at the bottom of the page, but that's really an exception when they
Right.
feel like they need to clarify a little bit more, and they'll put that in there. So I'm not a proponent of the whole add comments all over the place, and a lot of people would
Right.
think that
Right.
the clean
'Cause
code
then
movement would push you that way.
Yeah,
but
then you want to dirty it up, just
Yeah.
keep it nice and clean, like
yeah,
you said.
because half the goal is just how much logic can I see on the screen at once, and it should be, that's the signal, but all these other things like duplicated code and unnecessary comments and control structures that are unnecessarily verbose, that don't clarify what their intent is, that's all noise. So
Right.
how do we get to higher signal?
Get to that. Good. And so what session did you talk on about today?
So today I did a talk on single-page applications, and it was, it's the new story that people are wanting to build these really rich applications that avoid postbacks and
Okay.
just are super interactive, and that's exactly what we just did. So I work for Vin Solutions, which is owned by AutoTrader, which you've probably heard of.
Yes.
And so we write software for the automotive industry.
Okay.
And really what we ran into was we had a Silverlight application that people wanted to be able to use on their tablets instead. And when you want to use something on a tablet, then obviously we had to rule out Silverlight. So we said, well, one way we could do this is write native apps,
Right.
or the other way we could do this is just HTML5. So we went the HTML5 route, and it's a lot of fun. I'm just finding we ended up using Knockout. Knockout with Durandal, and then Require.js, and that combination is really a rapid way to pull an application off. Just putting in my declarative bindings and saying I want this data here and this data here, and call this method in this case, and it all just works. And you can move so quickly that way. It was a lot of fun.
I bet.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
the-
kind of a newer thing, I would just.
Oh, it absolutely is. I think right now with single-page apps, the hard decision is technology stack, right? And you're going, gosh, I'm overwhelmed with the options, because I could use Angular, I could use Backbone, I could use Knockout, maybe I could try Ember or Batman, and that's just the beginning of things. Then you have decisions to make even on, well, do I use just plain JavaScript, or maybe I should try TypeScript or CoffeeScript? So I think the hardest part about single-page apps right now is just making a decision. And I'm frustrated because it's almost certain that whatever you write will be rather irrelevant in a year or two, and people are going to look at that technology stack and go, well, it wasn't the one that ended up winning. That's where we're flipping a coin. And it seems at the moment that there is a huge amount of interest in AngularJS, and I suspect that it's because Google's behind.
Yeah.
Everybody feels a lot more comfortable with having a company that size
Yeah,
pushing things.
Yeah, Google's pretty much getting their hands into a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
Right now. I mean,
Yeah. Well, it's a funny situation, though, because people trust it because Google's behind it, but we also have to remember that Google has killed a lot of great things.
Services,
I mean,
yeah.
Google Reader just
for
went away
example.
recently.
Yeah.
And Chrome Frame was awesome. We could use Chrome with NIE, but then they killed that off too here recently. So, AngularJS is absolutely, it's not a done deal, but at the moment, that's probably where I'd place my bet on the winner of this horse race, if it even makes sense that there needs to be a winner. I mean, there's no reason we can't continue to have multiple, but they certainly have a lot of inertia.
Good. So are you seeing any trends? I mean, because it sounds like both your sessions that you spoke on can kind of go hand in hand a little bit with, your clean code, and then you're optimizing for your single page.
Yeah, and well, the funny thing is too, if you first present on clean code and then you go showing people your code in a separate session, you better make sure that it's top notch because you got to practice what you preach, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, that was absolutely something that I was.
Can't be a speaker on clean code, then show your sloppy mess, whatever you're doing.
Hi,
single
I'm
page.
a hypocrite. I'm your host.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
Forget what I said. This is not what I talked about
This
yesterday.
is a new day. Yeah, all my coworkers are at the bad stuff. If you don't like it, yeah.
Right. This isn't my work.
Never. Yeah. So and what I was focusing on was really breaking things down to be very, very modular, because I feel like that's the key. If you're writing a single page application, you're going to end up with a lot of JavaScript, but to make it maintainable, you need to separate your views and your view models and use a lot of small components so that people don't feel overwhelmed. I wish I could have used TypeScript so that I could have also had a strongly typed situation and known that I could refactor without breaking everything. That's
Right.
if you're somebody that works in C#, then it gets a little frustrating having to deal with runtime errors within JavaScript, because everything. That's probably the hardest part about single-page apps is the debugging story.
Yes.
It can get rather painful because sometimes you get very effectively, if you make a mistake, it just doesn't load at all. You're just
Nothing.
dead in the water, and you're
And
going,
then you're
so why didn't it? Let me go into the console and check the stack trace and see what I can figure out. So
And that is the one thing, just one little error throws everything off.
yes, yeah.
And it's just a matter of how good you are to be able to find your error.
Right, and that was one of my big takeaways was make small changes, hit save, refresh
it.
the browser, and as long as you slowly iterate, you go, well, it was one of the 2 or 3 lines I just changed here, so
Yeah,
it should be
it's
very
somewhere
easy
right in
to
this little
hone in
section.
on this. Yeah, because without the compiler, that's a good way to go.
Yeah, well, that's good. Good, doing good on time. So where do you kind of see what it is that you're doing? Where are you seeing that kind of going in the next? Do you see any trends on the horizon?
Well, I think it's interesting that more and more people are building single-page applications, and because they're doing that, I think Microsoft is rather concerned about diminished relevance in web forms and MVC. As people do less rendering on the server and more rendering on the client, how does Microsoft have a story there? And you see them making a push. So Web API was a great move. Now that they realize more people are consuming JavaScript and just RESTful APIs, then fine, they've made a really easy way to do that. Love it. We're a big fan of Web API. That's what we used behind the scenes for our API. But also, TypeScript is another way that they've tried to make sure that they're a piece of that story, because as people move more and more to JavaScript, what does Microsoft do to contribute to that piece? And I'm impressed with what I see there, and I'm interested to see how much that pans out and how many people, even outside of the traditional Microsoft development space, end up picking that up.
Right.
So I see those as some trends there, but I think ultimately we're going to see less and less rendering on the server and more, the browser is becoming more and more of a fat client as time goes on. I mean, as the JavaScript engines are getting so fast now that we can push large amounts of business logic down there, and they just handle it.
So similar to like Chrome OS, where
Yes.
Chrome OS on a Chromebook, that's essentially the operating system. I mean,
Right,
yes, everything
right.
is pretty much cloud-based, so you're not storing a lot of stuff on the hardware.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think the struggle right now is at what point do the oldest IE browsers roll out of favor so that we can really move forward on pushing the web ahead. So like in my current job, we're supporting IE8. IE8 is 10 times slower than Chrome for parsing JavaScript. And I have done a lot of benchmarks and seen that is true. So we could have something that is rather expensive to do in Chrome that might take around a second, and that's not too bad, it's a second. But you can see up to 10 seconds in IE8, and that's not acceptable.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it
that's-
really magnifies
Takes away
any
from
kind
that
of mistakes.
experience.
It does, and
In
it
this day and
sets.
age, it's we want
Exactly.
it now.
Yes,
That's society.
that's the idea of single page apps, right? It's like I'm too impatient to wait for a post back to reload here. I just want immediate interactivity, and it's more efficient too. But until these older browsers become a little less popular, it makes it very difficult. You have to draw a fine line and regularly test in older browsers and see whether you're performant enough.
Well, come April 2014, when XP officially gets the
We will
stake in the
see.
heart, we'll
Right.
see what businesses and 'cause,
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk to people in their office, yeah, I use Internet Explorer, but what version are you using? You're using something way back on
Right.
on XP, and everything's
Well,
on 10 and 11.
And that was unfortunate that you can't upgrade past IE8 on XP. It'd be really nice if they could have been revving people forward there too.
So that could help by
It
pushing XP
certainly could.
to the side.
I'll be interested to see. I mean,
Yeah.
the businesses that are still there though, I don't know, there's a lot
It's
of
a
reason that they're
it's a
there because there's a
significant
lot of
investment.
applications that
Yeah.
only work on those old
Exactly.
browsers.
So yeah, now's a great time to be a developer.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the Y2K problem all
Yeah,
over again.
It
We've got to
does.
update all
It really
the software.
does. Because you got all these businesses panicking. They're like, we can't have all this downtime, but hopefully they've been preparing,
Yes.
ready for that conversion. At least go to Windows 7
Yeah.
at the minimum.
If not, there will be some great consulting gigs out there here very soon.
'Cause there's going
as
to be a
people
lot
get caught off
of
guard.
security holes popping up.
Yeah, they will realize it's. I don't know. I'll be interested to see how many businesses even keep track of the fact that XP is no longer supported, because
Exactly.
it's not like they're going to get an email or some kind of a notice. If they're
Yeah.
not paying attention to tech blogs, it might just sneak by them.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe mainstream news will mention it too. It would
Yeah,
do us a
they need
favor
to.
if
Yeah.
we heard that.
Do everybody a favor.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Cory, I guess just tell everybody how they can find you.
Oh, so to find me, I'm on Twitter a lot. HouseCore is my handle. I tweet a lot about development, in particular clean code practices and architectural type of things. And then I have a blog, bitnative.com.
Bitnative.com.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much again, Cory.
Kevin?
Thank you for being on.
Pleasure.
And enjoy, people.